watching January Keaton.
All right, turning to politics, guys. The Republican health care bill is in serious jeopardy after the Congressional Budget Office predicted it would mean millions of people losing their health insurance.
A family that has owned the place since 1956, they've decided to sell the restaurant. And what the new owners are going to do, they're going to start tearing this building down in about mid-July, early August.
I may be inventing a new style, new hip way of dressing.
Yeah, that's exactly what's going to happen.
Sure, the kids love babushkas. Up next, guys, Peach County, thank you very much, ma'am. Peach County coach Chad Campbell joins our Bill Shanks in the Coach's Corner.
Now, shout out to Dave Prescott really quickly. I promised I would say that because he donated this entire airport hangar to Toys for Tots for this very reason. I'm going to let you see what's going on back here. Police are still trying to figure out a motive. When Tolliver was arrested last night, he gave no reason why he came back and torched the house. Meantime, he is in the Schenectady County Jail.
Well, account takeover fraud is one of the most basic forms of identity theft. It happens when a fraudster steals personal information to take control of existing bank or credit card accounts, and then they open new accounts.
He testified that little Jesse Smith was already in a full-blown coma when he was brought into the emergency room that February 2012 day. His brain was bleeding and one of his pupils were dilated, and those are all signs that the little boy was dying.
President Trump has a higher approval rating than Congress. According to that poll, only 10% approve of how Congress is working. Wow.
No, there's someone to come on
tough
41
crowd
NBC.
for Congress.
Yeah,
We don't want it to last forever, lady. We all got to do something in the light. Well, several of those watching cried during totality, and many say they're already planning for the next U.S. eclipse, which happens, by the way, in 7 years.
Our top story tonight at 5:30, though. A teenage suspect is in custody today after opening fire in his Washington State high school, killing a classmate and injuring 3 others.
They said that through witness statements as well as surveillance video from cameras mounted on a nearby home, they were able to catch Matthew Tolliver. And they said when they arrested him last night, he admitted he did set fire to the home that used to stand behind me here at 22 Minder Street.
It was information we had received from other individuals that in combination with some of our surveillance cameras, which led to the arrest of this individual.
Tolliver, who was arrested last night, told police he set the fire yesterday at 22 Minder Street after helping a friend move that morning. That friend had last month been evicted due to unsanitary living conditions.
We certainly have a case to go forward to the grand jury, and it would be appropriate to ask the grand jury to consider charges of burglary, perhaps, which would be a C violent felony, which would potentially subject him to up to 15 years in prison.
Police say that burglary charge could be tacked on because after Tolliver and his friend were finished moving, Tolliver later returned to the residence and for some reason torched it, reportedly using a lighter to set fire to some debris inside.
When you saw 2 kids go in the house, I think they thought somebody else was in there. And that was it. They came back outside. Nobody else came outside, though, and then the fire department pulled up fast.
Firefighter Michael Komazinski and Fire Chief Michael Della Rocco, seen here with his hand bandaged from burns, suffered minor injuries fighting the blaze.
I ended up with some blistering, and some of the blisters broke, which is kind of painful, but could have been worse.
Now, you can see behind me nothing but a tarp left. Underneath it, the charred remains of what used to be 22 Minder Street. Police are still trying to figure out a motive. When Tolliver was arrested last night, he gave no reason why he came back and torched the house. Meantime, he is in the Schenectady County Jail on $75,000 cash bond. He's facing a total of 3 charges, 1 of 3rd-degree arson and 2 second-degree assault charges for those 2 firefighters who were injured in that blaze that he allegedly set. Live in Schenectady, January Keaton.
The facility is a biomedical research company, but animal rights organization PETA calling it a virtual den of death for the monkeys housed there, thanks to an undercover operation that captured the conditions inside the Hendry County compound on hidden video.
So very sad. It makes me furious.
The abuse should be stopped.
Folks speaking out in horror after controversial undercover video showing what's described as deplorable conditions at primate products. Monkeys allegedly with excruciating injuries, little to no medical care, left to die in cold cages.
PETA had an observer working for 8 months undercover at Primate Products in Hendry County. While working full-time for the facility, this person was also documenting very carefully, painstakingly, every single day with video and photographs.
Dan Payton is an associate director with PETA. He says the USDA inspected the monkey farm last week after this eyewitness video, taken by an investigator with PETA, appeared to show grave mistreatment and abuse of the animals housed there.
These animals were violently captured, chased around those pens, stuffed into nets, how those animals were denied veterinary care and so forth. We took those findings to the USDA and we asked them to conduct an emergency inspection of the facility.
Payton says inspectors made 8 findings of non-compliance with the USDA's Animal Welfare Act. An official with Primate Products sent us a statement today saying, quote, "Video is always going to be damaging, especially when it's taken out of context. Pictures depicting animals with injuries and suggesting that they were not being cared for is just misleading. With that said, there are opportunities to improve on our program, and we are determined to do just that." But Payton wants the facility shut down altogether.
These animals feel fear and pain and stress and terror and anxiety and suffer just as we do.
Now, in their statement to us, Primate Products says its capture techniques can be reevaluated and more attention focused on minimizing stress on the animals. The facility has 21 days to either appeal the report or make the changes suggested by the USDA. Well, everybody, the bad news is mosquito season has started early this year. But the good news is Lee County Mosquito Control is on the case.
We've been very busy.
Biting little bloodsuckers, mosquitoes can make just about any outdoor experience an uncomfortable and itchy one.
It has started off in late May.
Mosquito season usually runs from about June through October. This year's mosquito numbers already higher than last year's, says Shelley Redevin of Lee County Mosquito Control.
We've had more hatch out. We're treating more. Our first real high tide started in the beginning of June.
And with that high tide came coastal mosquitoes that were hatching off in droves. That's why the agency is already out in force.
We will put out ground trucks in the evening, and that's usually after sundown. If it's a very large area, then we can actually start sending out the planes or use the helicopters.
Those trucks, planes, and helicopters spray a mist of chemicals that treat mosquito-prone sections of the community, keeping the little buggers' numbers from swelling like the bites I received while filming them today. Redevin says we're just far too attractive to the insects.
A flowery fragrance, that is an attractant. Something sugary is attractant to a mosquito. Carbon dioxide coming out of your skin, they sense that and they're looking for you.
Now, while there's no way to keep from getting bitten here in Southwest Florida by a mosquito, you can decrease your chances. Shelley says wear long pants. You can wear long sleeves. Of course, stay away from wet areas, especially after it rains. Mosquitoes, they hide during the rain, but then after that rain is done, they come out because they do love that moisture. And above and beyond everything else, get yourself a good bug spray. In Lehigh Acres, January Keaton. What happened? A man was shot right in this shared sort of driveway in this trailer community. And as you can see, police are still on the scene here trying to figure out why. 7:30 a.m. People usually wake up to the sound of alarm clocks, but this morning, the sound of gunfire pierced the air. Police say a shooting happened in this cluster of trailer homes in the Suncoast neighborhood, an area that has seen better days.
You got people out here robbing people, out here murdering people over stupid stuff. Little kids could walk around, with no problem. Now they can't even do that.
The 41-year-old male victim was rushed to the hospital with 5 bullet wounds to the back, hip, buttocks, and abdomen. Residents say the shooting may be drug-related.
There is playground and stuff, and, so I'm scared for more of the kids.
One neighbor who asked us not to show her face and to only call her Crystal says drugs, crime, and violence are nothing new in Suncoast.
Home invasions and, stealing and robberies and stuff like that. Yeah, that is the big problem with drugs, yeah. Most definitely.
This afternoon, Lee County Sheriff's officers handcuffed and removed a woman from a trailer at the scene of the shooting and took her in for questioning. So far, though, police have not named a suspect or a motive. Now, back here live on Epson Drive in North Fort Myers, I did speak exclusively to the brother of the victim. He sort of approached us this morning as we were on the scene, and he did tell me that his brother is going to be okay. He got out of surgery this morning, and he is in stable condition. But he says this also may have been drug-related. He did give us that information. So, of course, we're going to stay on top of this story, and we'll bring you more as it becomes available. For now, I'm live in North Fort Myers. January Keaton.
John, Lydia, I'm here at Integra Networks. Now, shout out to Dave Tony Prescott really quickly. I promised I would say that because he donated this entire airport hangar to Toys for Tots for this very reason. I'm going to let you see what's going on back here. A couple of dozen people still sorting after you mentioned them emptying out all 600 of those Toys for Tots donation boxes, and now this is where they go. They're going to be sorted, they're going to be bagged, and they're going to be given to agencies to distribute to needy Capital Region children.
This will go for a little girl, so 0 to 3 girls.
This doll, just one of the countless toys collected in these familiar 4-by-2-foot cardboard boxes. Today, Toys for Tots volunteers picked up the last of the 600 toy donation boxes scattered around the Capital Region. Through your generosity, these boxes bring a brighter Christmas to over 100,000 less fortunate children each year.
All these toys are from collections from the Capital Region. We have about 600 drop-off locations, you know, and we encourage the agencies to take more people, and that's what's happened. I've had agencies come back to us and tell us, you know, we need more toys because we had 3 more calls, which that's great.
And it's no easy feat getting toys and stocking stuffers to 100,000 Capital Region kids, so Gunnery Sergeant Albert Roman coordinates this bustling beehive of unwrapping, separating, tagging, and bagging toys as a virtual assembly line.
I facilitate, they make it happen.
He says he couldn't do it without help from local Marine and firefighter volunteers.
I'm just traffic control.
You're traffic control?
I'm just traffic control. That's
they're
all.
The laborers.
They're the laborers, they're the guys, and they're happy.
Happy to say this year, every toy request has been filled. And by the end of this broadcast, the final deliveries will have been picked up or dropped off, a full day ahead of schedule.
You'll see agencies pulling into the front of the warehouse. They'll come up with their order slip, and the guys will give them their order, they sign for it, and off they go, and then the agencies will start delivering to the families.
Each toy that helped fill these boxes on its way to making a child's holiday a little happier. Now, back here live at the Toys for Tots headquarters, you can see a couple of dozen volunteers still out here. They're packaging up the last-minute toys, and also they'll be cleaning up the hangar, getting it all ready for next year. Now, I asked the gunnery sergeant you just saw there in charge a tally of how many toys they got this year versus last year. He said he's been so busy he has not been able to get those numbers up and running. But he did tell me that if you are still interested in donating, there's still time. Just because the boxes are gone doesn't mean they stopped taking donations. He said you can donate, take a toy down new in its original packaging to the Troy Fire Department, the Schenectady Fire Department, or you can bring it right here behind the airport inside of Integra Networks to the Toys for Tots headquarters. In Colony, January Keaton, News 10 ABC. We're about to reach day 7 of the partial government shutdown. News 10 ABC reaching out to our area's representatives to see if there's any relief in sight. Good evening, and thank you for joining us. I'm January Keaton. Less than an hour from now, the government shutdown turns a week old. And all this weekend, the fights between parties and government chambers continued, even after a big bipartisan vote in the House to pay furloughed workers. And that's leaving Americans with many questions. So News 10 ABC sought out answers from some of those who represent our area in the nation's capital. And Lindsay Nielsen has what they had to say. She's live in the studio now with our top story. Lindsay.
Well, January, the main holdup still seems... Lindsay Nielsen, News 10 ABC.
Thank you, Lindsay. Now, as the fight continues over the shutdown, in less than 2 weeks, Washington will be up against another deadline. That's when Congress must vote on raising the debt ceiling or the nation's borrowing limit to pay Medicare, Social Security, and other obligations. Now, the deadline is October 17th. While many Democrats are pushing for a vote as soon as possible, some Republicans have been hoping to get changes to the Affordable Care Act as part of negotiations. Today, the Treasury Secretary says it's best to vote first and negotiate later. But according to House Speaker John Boehner, he'll only allow Congress to vote after a conversation with the president.
I'm telling you that on the 17th, we run out of our ability to borrow, and Congress is playing with fire. If they don't extend the debt limit, we have a very, very short window of time before those scenarios start to be played out.
Yes or no? Would you put that bill on the floor?
I do not want the United States to default on its debt, but I am not going to raise the debt limit without a serious conversation about dealing with the problems that are driving the debt up.
So on your own...
It'd be irresponsible of me to do this.
Now, the Treasury says failing to raise the limit could force the government to default on its payments for the first time ever, creating a potential financial crisis. And with Washington dealing with the shutdown and now the debt ceiling, there's another thing that could fall through the cracks. A new farm bill, and that could hit Americans at the grocery store. The current bill is set to expire January 1st. If no action is taken, that could force the government to pay more for dairy products, meaning consumers would have to shell out more for cheese, milk, and more. You may remember the same thing happening last year when the government almost shut down then. New at 11, we are reaching the end of an era here in the capital region, and what would be the last Blockbuster video location in our area announces it's closing up shop. News 10 ABC learned today that the Blockbuster on Broad Street in Glens Falls will be closing in November. This comes several weeks after the Latham store also announced it would be closing. Latham is currently wrapping up its liquidation sale and will shut its doors for good in just a few weeks, October 20th. The last day for the Glens Falls Blockbuster is November 23rd. Over the past several years, Blockbuster has closed many of its rental stores, instead focusing on streaming video and movies by mail, sign of the times. But the space occupied by the Glens Falls Blockbuster will not remain vacant for long. A local gym expects to move in by the winter. Anytime Fitness, which is based in Hudson Falls, says on its page of Facebook that its owners will open a second location inside the Broad Street Plaza. And a fallen light pole caused a minor traffic issue in Menands this afternoon. The response closed a section of Broadway between Brookside Avenue and Menand Road while crews cleared the scene. But police have a bit of a mystery on their hands as they don't know what exactly caused it to topple over in the first place. Either way, things were back open by about 4 o'clock this afternoon. And CDTA is investigating whether one of its drivers may have struck a bicyclist with a bus yesterday evening. The incident happened in front of UAlbany's Uptown campus just before 6. A university spokesperson says the bicyclist was involved in some kind of accident and taken to the hospital. Now, UAlbany police are looking to find out what kind of accident that was and if a bus was involved. Now, we reached out to CDTA, and a spokesperson tells us the agency is investigating what happened. The cyclist's injuries are not expected to be life-threatening. Well, your Storm Tracker forecast is up next on News 10 ABC, and for a preview of what's to come, here's meteorologist Andy Gregorio. Andy.